Namaste, Namaskaram, hello India. Paul here and welcome to the fourth episode of Ask Google Devs India series. You can view the previous episodes on Kotlin, Android 11 and web by following the links in the description. In this video, we bring answers to your questions on Google Cloud, and we have Google Developer Advocate Priyanka Vargadia and partner engineer Roman Irani to answer your questions. Before you hear from them, here are the top updates on India's developer ecosystem. India's TensorFlow communities are organizing TFUG India Summit, which is a 4-day event to bring together the curious machine learning enthusiasts, developers, and researchers. You'll learn from domain experts and also see the latest projects that are built by TensorFlow practitioners. To register for this event, you can look at the link in the description below. We're really excited to announce that we have onboarded a total of 269 brand new Developer Student Club leads. While we're really sad to see the previous batch of leads leave us, we want to congratulate you, thank you for your hard work, and wish you the best for the future. The new leads will create learning opportunities on Google Tech for students on their campuses and will also build solutions for their community and local businesses. Learn more about this program at the link below. Now, the pandemic has been relentless, and it's raised a lot of questions in developers' minds, such as identifying new sources of income or dealing with the uncertainty of work. Working closely with our Google Developer Experts, GDEs, we've created a GDEs guide to navigate COVID-19, where Google Developer Experts share their tips to help you on the most pressing issues caused by the pandemic. You can check out these tips that feature twice a week on our Twitter handle, Google Devs IN. 11 GDG communities from India have come together to celebrate Google Cloud Next OnAir extended event. This will give you a detailed understanding of Google Cloud with talks, demos, partner connects, and a lot more. Spread out over 9 weeks, you will hear from speakers from all over the world on cutting-edge topics for all skill levels. Check out the link in the description below on how you can be part of this. To ensure that aspiring developers are learning the latest in tech, we've partnered with multiple universities across India to train faculty on our latest course, Android Development with Kotlin. This course will empower and enable university faculty to teach Android development in Kotlin to their students in an online setting through hands-on practical labs. Now, those were the top updates for you. Here are Priyanka and Roman with their answers to your questions on Google Cloud.
I am Priyanka Vargadia. I'm a developer advocate at Google Cloud.
I'm Roman Irani. I'm a partner engineer at Google Cloud.
All right, so let's jump into the questions. Roman, let's start with one of the most common questions, right? If somebody wants to learn Google Cloud, where do they get started?
Yeah, so when it comes to learning Google Cloud, we have multiple resources, but I would suggest that the way you would look at it is to see which particular area or particular expertise you come with. So, for example, if you're into infrastructure or if you're into app development or data analytics. So, what we have, if you go to our Learn Google Cloud page, you'll have different tracks that are set for everyone. So you can look at what each of the track offers. It gives you a list of suggestions, list of courses that you can complete, and also keep in mind that we have very generous free tiers, so you can actually get started, experience these services. And what you'll find in our learning track are multiple resources. They will point you out to Quick Labs, which is our online learning environment where you can get first-hand experience of different services. We've also got multiple resources which are coming from another cloud provider as to what the mappings are from one cloud provider to Google Cloud. Plus, DevRel team has created a great set of resources, including sketch notes which you have made, which are very useful to get started. So I would suggest as a first step, come to the Learn Google Cloud page, pick a particular track or area that you're familiar with, look at the various suggestions that will range from articles, YouTube video lists, Quick Labs, and also our Google courses.
Yep, awesome. So find what you're interested in, what you're what your expertise is in, and then start from there is always the best way to do it. Great. So next question we have is, what is the recommended way to study for the Associate Cloud Engineering exam, and how do you prepare for these exams? So I think we can bundle up maybe more questions in there around certification in general, and then maybe we can answer specifically about associate. But that has also been a very common question.
Yeah, so I guess Google Cloud certification, has seen a surge in popularity. But now, if we come to the specific question around, different exams or different certifications which are out there, so whether it's the associate cloud engineer or the data engineer, cloud architect, and many others that we have now. So the first stop I would suggest is to go to our certification page, because that lists out, the different certifications you are interested in. And if I just step back a bit and look at the different certifications, the Associate Cloud Engineer exam is, for folks who are, responsible for deploying and running Google Cloud projects in production. And then we've got another one called the Professional, Architect exam that sort of goes across the set of services, gives you a much more broader perspective in terms of the pros and cons, which services to use when, etc. Then we've got a bunch of very specialized, I would say, offerings in the certification space. If you are in the data analytics space, or we've even got certifications for networking, security. Recently, we even opened up in beta the machine learning certification. So what I suggest is pick a certification that you would like to go for, go to our certification page and navigate into that particular certification. There, what you'll find is not just the topics that are going to be there for the certification, but there's also a mock exam which you can take, maybe to see if you're, how many questions you could answer. It just gives you a feel for the kind of exam that's out there. Then, of course, we've got a list of resources we have listed down. For example, you could do a Google Coursera course, a quick labs quest to get familiar with it. And there are multiple resources on the web also. So to summarize, go to our certification page, pick a certification you're interested in. I would say focus on the topics that are going to be there in that certification, because that's what you will be tested for. Take a look at our mock exams, complete a few resources or Google courses which have been mentioned over there. That would be a good start over there. And nothing beats, focused preparation. So give it some time. These exams do test you out well in real life situations. So be well prepared and good luck, of course.
Yeah, I found the mock exams to be really, really helpful. So do make sure that you look at the mock exams to understand how prepared you are, and then go back and maybe reassess the situation somewhere in the middle. Like, don't try to just take the mock exam right away. Maybe try and take it after a certain level of preparation to assess where you are with your. That's how I would use the mock exams, because there are only a few questions and you want to make sure that you see them that way.
So, Priyanka, there's a question for you on machine learning. It's how does one get started using machine learning services in GCP? Maybe a case study walkthrough, but just how does one get started, and how does one get problem solving with ML and AI, specifically in Google Cloud?
So it's a very good question, because there are lots of us who want to just get dabble into machine learning and have no experience with it, and then there are some who have the experience and want to create something that they already have a problem in mind for, right? So given where you are, there are lots of tools within Google Cloud to understand how to get started with machine learning. I've done a Twitter series called 13 Days of GCP, where I've broken down 2 days were specifically about machine learning. And I'll give an example. We'll include the link for that in the description below, but I'll use that as an example here. I've taken one example on, I think, day 11, where I said if you have, if you are very new to it, right? Just imagine a use case where you have a website or some site that is, or a mobile app that's collecting user information, or in a way that it's like either images or text, certain comments, and you want to apply machine learning to it. The best way to get started is to use our ML APIs, right? So you take the data, whatever the user is giving you. For example, it's an image. You got it into Google Cloud Storage, and from there you just triggered a call through Cloud Functions to the machine learning API. And then the machine learning API would respond back. In this case, the vision API would respond back with whatever it is that's in the image. For example, you're looking for whether it's a dog or a cat, right? And that responded back with whatever it was in there. And then you take more action based on that. So that's the easiest example. If you haven't done anything in machine learning, I would maybe start from there. But if you are more advanced and you have a specific use case, like you're looking for specific types of logos, and it's a very specific use case to you, that might require more examples and more samples to be applied, then I would say use AutoML, where you can provide your own examples and train a model and have your custom API deployed on Google Cloud and use that in your app. Um, Further down, if you want to create your own machine learning models with your own data, just right from scratch, you could do that in the AI platform. So there are lots of different tools as to where you are in your journey for machine learning. And also it depends on the use case. If the use case does not require you to build a machine learning model, you should not. And you should just use what is available to you with the already available ML APIs. So we'll include the links for some of these things in the description below. I think we can have an entire session just on machine learning, so I'm not going to take much time on this, and just include some links that you can go to learn more.
Yeah, so that's interesting, Priyanka, because it allows even those who are just starting off with machine learning, and to the other side of the spectrum, if you're already familiar with some of the other tools and frameworks, you could utilize, whichever or wherever you are. Yeah.
Exactly. So the next question, Roman, is does Google Cloud Platform have anything to offer for maintaining and processing geospatial data workloads? I think this is an interesting one because um, the they also ask if BigQuery, they've heard that BigQuery GIS offers this, but have never used it. What would you suggest to people in the GIS domain? So I guess they're just interested in learning more about what are their options when it comes to geospatial data.
All right. So this is an interesting question because spatial or location data is there across various applications that we've come across. So if you want to track any sort of objects that are moving around, or even if you want to combine let's say some purchases that have happened in your stores and where the stores are. So spatial data is there, in applications that we know about. Now, specifically, if you look at BigQuery and the support for GIS, it's an excellent platform by which you can get started. But first, if you look at BigQuery, primarily that's our enterprise data warehouse. And there you could look at, I would say, a data pipeline. So you got to first ingest data. Then once it's sort of transformed and stored, ready for analysis, you could do your analysis right there. And then obviously the last step would be to sort of visualize that data and drive other downstream applications. And all of this happens at scale and is serverless. So you have the entire power of BigQuery that's available at your disposal. And what BigQuery GIS has done is something interesting in a sense that it lets you work, with spatial data and makes it available for analysis. And it does a few other things extra that makes this easier. So it supports various data sets or data structures that you're familiar with in GIS. Could be a point, could be a line point, could be a polygon, could be a region. So all of these data structures are available in BigQuery GIS. They also give you various geography functions that make it easier for you to work with spatial data. Could be distance, could be whether a point is in a region or not. So if you look at it, it gives you analysis functions, geography functions right within BigQuery analysis. And finally, it lets you visualize all of that. So we've got a GeoViz BigQuery application where you could take the results of your BigQuery analysis and actually visualize it via maps, regions, drill down, and more importantly, share this. So in summary, I would say take a look at BigQuery GIS. It enables the entire pipeline right from ingestion to storage to analysis, gives you lots of utility geography functions that make it easy to work with GIS data, and of course lets you visualize too. So check out the link below that gives you a quick start, to how you can familiarize yourself with BigQuery GIS.
Awesome. That's great. I am not very familiar with GIS, so I am so glad that you were able to answer that one. How can a candidate join Google as a cloud engineer? Oh, I love this one. What things are looked for in a candidate while they're recruiting for a position of Google Cloud Engineer?
So yeah, I mean, if you look at joining Google Cloud as a cloud engineer, of course, a few things that I would probably add over here are that focus on the area that you are familiar with. That's where your strengths are, and most importantly, I think you need to be able to tell us what you've been doing with the technology, what sort of contributions you made, maybe even any open source contributions. Uh, so we look at, I would say, an all-round perspective over here that looks at your technical skills, problem-solving skills, how you approach a problem. So some of those things are, I would say, very important for you to even focus on. And additionally, always being able to sort of articulate technology, talk about it, is some of the things that I could talk about. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So I started at Google as a customer engineer. So that's why the question is very interesting to me. I just want to touch on the fact that I have a blog that I'd written, I think about a year or two ago, where I said, what's it like to be a customer engineer at Google? And I think the question alludes to a lot of what it would be like, because that could help you prepare for what the interview also looks for in a candidate. So I we'll just include the link to the blog as well. So if you are interested in learning more about what you do on the job, that could help you prepare yourself for what you should study or prepare for in order to appear for the interviews. But what are all the things that Roman has mentioned are all the things that you kind of need to do, but the blog can give you an idea of what the job is like, which is actually fun.
Okay. So the next question for you, Priyanka, is it's an interesting one because everyone wants to get started with Google Cloud, but they may already be having some applications that they're running elsewhere, or they want to migrate from one cloud provider to another. Maybe they've got lots of data also to migrate. So how does one go about taking those first steps? And I guess you've been making some interesting videos. So there's also a request maybe for you to create a few nice migration videos so people could get started. So any thoughts on that?
Awesome. Yeah, no, we've received this request a lot. So based on that request, we've created a migration series. We'll include the link in the description below. It's called, if you want to go to it, bit.ly/migration dash series is where it is. We have a few videos there, and then we have linked to solutions guide from the videos as well, where you can learn how to get started with migration. I'm also working on a sketch note, so stay tuned for a migration sketch note as well.
So Priyanka, the next question is how Google Cloud can help startups.
That's a great question. We do have a startup program that we can link in the description below, where you can find out more about the offers and discounts and things like that, and and how you can get started. So not a lot that we can add here, but there's a lot more information on the link that we will put. So go check the link out.
The next question is that I would like to make an app for COVID-19, which I want to connect to cloud. So, how do I store my data out there? So, the question would specifically be around what sort of different ways or different storage options available on Google Cloud.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. There are a lot of storage options, and depending on what type of app it is, say it's a mobile app, you probably want to use something like Firestore because it's easier to connect to a mobile app and has direct integrations. But if there is like a relational database that you need, you can use Cloud SQL for that. If this is going to be a super global, high performing app that requires lots of reads and writes, then you probably want to look at Spanner. But if this is just starting out, maybe you're better off starting out with Firestore, then and for a non-relational database, and then if you need a relational, I would say Cloud SQL. There are a lot more options for images. For example, you would use Cloud Storage. For more static data, use that. But I'm keeping the answer short and maybe include the link in the description so you can see where you are. We'll include a flowchart and so you can decide what type of database you should select.
Yeah, it's cool to see so many options depending upon your use case. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the next question is how useful GCP can be for Flutter developers. I've had this question a lot. So, Roman, I'm very curious to see what you usually respond to this one.
Yeah, so if I look at Flutter development, or maybe even if I need to sort of expand it out to general mobile development, I think one of the ways that Google Cloud can help out here is that for the mobile applications, you could be using Google Cloud as a backend. It could be your API, it could be your storage, it could even be for hosting the web application itself. So the way I would look at it is that Google Cloud provides various options for you to, host your backend services or APIs. You could either do it yourself, host them on Compute Engine. You've got support for Kubernetes too, as well as even serverless options like App Engine or Cloud Functions, Cloud Run. So there could be great, platforms by which you could host your backend for, mobile applications that you create. At the same time, no discussion would be complete if we don't mention Firebase. So Firebase could be an option, a suite of services that gives you, not just the real-time database, but even additional services around it, maybe remote configuration, A/B testing. Plus, if you look at Firebase hosting, that gives you a great way by which you could host production websites itself. So multiple options given to you, but GCP could be a great backend to power your mobile applications.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for sending us all your questions. We definitely enjoyed answering them.
Yeah, thank you so much for the questions.
Thank you, Priyanka and Roman, for answering the questions on Google Cloud. I hope you all found that useful. If you'd like to know about the latest shows and updates from Google Devs India, hit the subscribe button. And you can also follow us on Twitter at Google Devs IN. That's all for now, folks. Stay safe.